For President Lagos, whether we are talking about the global trading system, or whether we are talking about the global financial system, or whether we are talking about climate change, the key challenge is to build our institutions and in some cases rebuild them for a rapidly changing world. Minister, your thoughts, please.
Yesterday, the APEC ministers had a very good meeting with Pascal Lamy to review the progress of the Doha negotiations. And we agreed that the two chairman pacts on agriculture and NAMA should be the basis for negotiations. Around the table, the mood was not particularly optimistic. The positions, in fact, are not far apart. We are down to plus minus 2 or 3 percentage points here and there. But there is a sense that the political will isn't there. Everyone is watching President Bush. If the prestige and authority of the US is put behind the negotiations, I believe in coming months we can close it. But if, because other preoccupations by the US administration, by the US Congress, that will is not there, then we may have to wait some years. And positions can't be frozen. The war moves on. Everyone has a plan B and a plan C. FTAs, regional arrangements, preferential arrangements. And little by little, if we are not careful, distrust will well up in the global system and the WTO will be weakened. We cannot assume that the forces of globalization are inexorable, that inevitably all markets will be liberalized. Human nature has not changed. Human beings, tribes, countries are basically insecure. And the insecurities without leadership, without institutions, can feed on one another. You take, for instance, the scramble for energy today by China and India. They worry that when they need it the most, it may be denied them. So rather than take the risk, they take their own precautions. Now, in an earlier period, when Japan was ascendant, it too came into collision with other imperial powers and decided in the end that it had to secure its own resources on the Asian mainland, and that led to war and grief. We cannot assume that this present goodwill in the world of leaders meeting, regional organizations proliferating, conferencing that goes on interminably will always continue. That we are at the end of history, that there will be no more ideologies in the world. It may not be. Here in Asia, we say, as sure as the sun will rise, the global economy, its center of gravity will shift to Asia. And we rejoice in it, at the prospect. We're on the move, again. But I don't believe that countries around the world view the same prospect with the same emotion. In fact, some countries view it with concern. A few possibly with concern. Never in history has there been a great shift of political and economic power without accompanying stresses, often leading to war. Can it happen? We don't know. One reason why APEC was established in 1989 was because the founding countries looked ahead and worried that one day the Pacific might become divided down the middle. acting to forestall that from happening. They said, no, look, we've got to build links across the Pacific. And the WTO and other institutions are ways by which we settle our differences in a civilized manner. It's very important that whatever happens in the coming months in Doha, that we do not allow the WTO to weaken. It has high prestige. When WTO panels adjudicate, their decisions carry not only legal weight, they also carry moral authority. But if that is allowed to weaken, then what do we have? As President Lagos said, the major institutions that we now have were institutions which were created after the Second World War. And they are creaky, and they do not take into account the reality of today. You take the G8, you take the issue of financial market coordination in the world, which is crucial because a crisis in one continent can quickly spread to other continents and become worldwide. How can it be that the G8 not include China, India, and Brazil? And the sooner they are brought in, the better it will be. Then the responsible countries are forced to look at each other in the eyes and coordinate. And if anyone wants a rupture, well, you take responsibility. But if some are kept up while others are in, then we should not be surprised that suspicions will build up and everyone will take precautions. In the last century, there was a period like now where the sunshine looked forever. That was the roaring 20s. It led to the 30s. It led to the Great Depression, the rise of ideologies, and then the slaughter of the Second World War. We cannot assume that because the sun is shining bright now, that clouds cannot quickly gather on the horizon and a sudden turning of the weather. Of course, history doesn't repeat itself. We cannot assume that we no longer have the wisdom to overcome some of the mistakes that were made in the past. And there are new issues which bind us together, like climate change, like global pandemics, like terrorism. But unless leaders lead and institutions are established which enable problems to be solved, then there are reasons to be both pessimistic and optimistic. Thank you.